How you, man?
Hi, sir.
You away on vacation?
Hello, everybody, and Happy New Year first. Thank you for being here today. We have Mayor Eric Adams, we have Commissioner Manuel Castro from Moya. So I think we're gonna go straight to the conversation that we're gonna have today. And so I just want to remind, we are gonna be discussing year 2022, the first year of the Adams administration, and any other questions that you might have from the community. And it's one question per reporter. So let's start with Weekly Dunya International and Mansoor Hussain.
I was not expecting. How are you, Mr. Mayor?
You always gotta be ready. I'm always ready.
Thank you very much for giving me your precious time. And as we know, you are the mayor of this beautiful, great city. I was not prepared, but I have a question that what was your expectations as a mayor when you took office last year? Do you think you fulfilled those expectations from within yourself for the great city of this New York, for the people of this city?
Great question. First, many people who were running, they may have decided a year out that all of a sudden, hey, I want to be mayor. That is not my journey. 28 years ago, after I saw the failures of an 11-year-old young man who was arrested twice in 1 week for robbery, was inside the precinct. His mom was on crack cocaine at that time. His dad was in jail for homicide. He missed over a month in school. No one checked up on him. I understood that by the time I saw those young people who were arrested, the system already abandoned them. And I went on this 28-year journey watching how the system abandoned people to say I want to correct that when I became the mayor of the city of New York. And so I was running around 28 years ago. People who know me, they knew 28 years ago I was saying, I'm going to be the mayor of the city of New York, January 1st, 2022. It took a long time before they understood I was not on medication and that I was seriously thinking about running. And so January 1st, when I became the mayor, it was surprising to those who were in the race. It wasn't surprising to people who watched me for the year. I came in here with a clear agenda of what I was going to do as the mayor. And one of the items on the agenda was Jose. The ethnic media has been locked out. They're not allowed to sit in the room and ask the questions. I said, Jose, we need to change that. He put the blueprint in place, and you are going to have access to me more than any other mayor in the history of this city.
Thank you. Next, we have Queens Latino, Javier Castaño.
I guess everybody here published your column about what you accomplished last year. I got my attention the fact that you didn't mention immigration, and you have done a lot of things on immigration. So why you didn't mention that in your column? And the other thing is what respect for immigration that happened this year that is going to be really strong, I guess, on that issue.
Well, we are a city of immigrants, and what I've learned from my immigrant community is that they've made it clear. They said that we want the same thing every other New Yorker wants: good schools, safe streets, not to be the victim of hate crimes, employment opportunities, support for small businesses, because during COVID, when other businesses closed down, the businesses that remained open and serviced the city were the immigrant businesses. And making sure you could have access to the city contracts, making sure that you are respected in the city that you have adopted as your home. It doesn't matter if you're Haitian, the African diaspora, Russian speaking, from the Caribbean, it doesn't matter where you come, South Central America, they all want the same thing, and they want to be respected as such. And that's what our agenda has been. That's why I have a former Dreamer as the head of my mayor's office of immigrant affairs. I have Adonis Rodriguez, who came here undocumented, barely spoke English, is now in charge of the largest DOT in the country. You know, so you see in my administration, the first Muslim to be the commissioner of my oath. you see sprinkled all over my administration the real spirited immigrant of the immigrant community. Mira Joshi, the first deputy mayor of Indian descent. Deputy Mayor Maria Torres Springer, the first Filipina to be the deputy mayor. You see the reflection of the city in my administration. And so we're going to continue to roll out some clear immigrant policies, but we just want to get a general sense of what we did around immigration in the city and our general victories that we have accomplished in the city.
Thank you. So next one is Suno Africa Radio. Hi.
Thank you.
What's up, man? How are you?
Happy New Year to everyone.
Thank you.
The question is as this. You had promised in the campaign that we would be having more of this. It's happening. Thank you to that. But the ethnic media is still waiting to see how can we stand strong like the stream media. Because the fact is, we all know that Mayor Eric Adams had been elected because of the ethnic media and the immigrant community. And we are still to see the expectation to see how can your administration will do for the ethnic media. Can we expect more funding coming to the ethnic media?
Yeah, and that is the job of Jose. What he has been clear on, looking at where we're spending our dollars in advertisement, where we are spending our dollars, and make sure that we disseminate it among the ethnic media. The amount of money that was spent during COVID that did not find its way in the ethnic media is humiliating. It's unbelievable when we did an analysis of how much was actually spent, particularly through the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, all the announcement. Everyone does not read the New York Times, the Daily News, the New York Post, and watch CNN. That's just the reality of it. And there's a lot of non-English speaking news outlets that listen to radios, that listen to other forms of communication. So our goal is to use the dollars in a real way, and that's what Jose has focused on, and we want to continue to do so. 2023, we want to really zero in on making sure we get the ethnic media the advertisement dollars that they deserve, to get that information out to your various communities. Now, is it an endless flow of money? No, it's not. Is it a lot of small media outlets? Yes, there is. There's a list that we have. I know we updated the list from what was there previously, and our goal is try to get as many of those outlets as possible to get the advertisement dollars and other resources that Jose is very knowledgeable on. This was his #1 issue as running my ethnic media in the campaign. He came in from day one and said, we can do better than what we have done, and that's what we're going to do. This is the first office of this nature that was ever in city government that we have here.
Can I add something?
Please do.
Yes. So also, I'm saying this now. So we are gonna have at the end of this month, the final version of the directory. Something that I can tell you is it's gonna be a smaller directory than the one that it was published during the last administration. So that means that more funding is gonna go to the outlets, and I would say like 99% or 100% of the publishers here are going to be in that directory. So we went through an analysis of each one of them. Every one of you received the form where you have to submit the receipts for printing or for circulation. So now the directory that is going to be out is going to be a directory that we know that is real, for real publishers that are in New York City. Next one, we have Radio Rampa.
Mr. Mayor,
How are you?
good afternoon. I have a question that is what happened in 2022, and it spills out to this year, I guess. The nurses are threatening to strike on Monday, and on behalf of my community that are patients and nurses, I'm wondering if you are going to take any stance in that conflict, because they're preparing pretty seriously. They're moving patients, they're not accepting some of them. Ambulances, I was wondering if you're going to get involved in that.
I have been communicating with NISNA, communicating with the hospitals as well, the representative. I've been communicating with everyone involved. I'm happy to see some of the hospitals have settled. There are a few that have not settled yet, a few nice locations. But the goal is we can't lose our nurses. And when you talk about nurses, you're talking about immigrants, talking about black and brown community. When you walk into the hospitals during COVID, you walked into the hospitals, that's what you saw in the nurses population. We have a nurses shortage. We have to keep building up and build the pipeline for nursing, but they do deserve, they were heroes, they were on the front line. We need to make sure that we have good contracts for them. The contracts that I saw thus far, 3 years, 18% raises, there's some great contracts, and many of the unions have settled, and we want to make sure everyone feel whole and settled.
What may be responsible for the shortage of nurses, you think?
Well, it's a combination
That's
of
their main
things.
issue.
Right now it seems like it's a shortage of everything. All of our occupations, when I speak with both public and private, when I speak with my colleagues across the country, they say the same thing. They are all dying for employees to come in. We have a 8% vacancy rate. The city council has a 14.5%. The controller has a 14%. And so it is about a number of things that has happened. The nursing issue has been going on for a long time. We need to build out that pipeline of nurses in the city and in the country.
Next, we have Mona Davis from Little African News.
Hi.
Mona.
Hi there.
How's it going,
Happy
Mona?
New Year. Okay, so Mr. Mayor, you recently held the meeting with Reverend Al Sharpton and other elected officials at NAN headquarters. The NYPD also just came out with a report about, the increase in teen violence. As you know, when it comes to public safety and school safety, parents are very, very concerned. We're looking at these numbers, we're asking whose child is next. I understand that you inherited this problem, but what is your plan to, one, increase the number of NYPD, of offices, because there is kind of like a brain drain and our offices are being poached and they're going to other cities and other states because salaries and other benefits. And connected to that question on school safety, we appreciate what you're doing with school safety and keeping them under the purview of the NYPD, but also with school safety, what happens in the streets goes into the schools. So that being said, more and more children are traveling to school with weapons. The number of firearms and other weapons being seized, you know the numbers. What's the plan to increase both police officers and school safety agents to protect our children traveling to and from school as well as in school? And then just one other thing attached to that, Mr. Mayor. School safety used to have a dedicated NYPD task force of 200 officers assigned to the school safety division, and those officers did safe corridors. Under the previous cohort for the city council, they defunded that part of the NYPD budget. And a lot of these incidents that are happening in our communities are happening at dismissal and outside of school. So for 2023, Mr. Mayor, what's your plan?
Yeah, but first of all, I'm happy you said that, and I think there needs to be a real voice from the parents and not allow the loudest to give the impression that parents don't want school safety agents in their schools. On the campaign trail, I was one of the few candidates that stated I am not taking school safety agents out of the schools. Others just went to the loudest voices, and I refuse to do that. Our children must be safe. With that said, the safest place for our children is in the school. The number of incidents that are occurring in schools of violence are not high in our schools. We've done an amazing job with our school safety agents, not to over-police our schools, but at the same time, give our students the safety that they need. We found a number of handguns in our school. That's a real issue. And so, again, there are those who are opposed to any form of scanning or wanting to identify those weapons. I just strongly believe we need to make sure when our children enter a school building that they're treated in a very safe and fair way. And we cannot say enough about our school safety agents. The chancellor was a school safety agent prior to going into education. One, we want to increase the backlog and again, going back to your question about employment, it's difficult to get people to come on board. You know, we're going to do a hiring hall to let New Yorkers know about all the jobs that are available. I don't believe we had a strong recruitment campaign. Many people are not aware of the jobs that are available. School safety agents are good unionized jobs. We are looking to build a pipeline that our school safety agents can be promoted into the police department. We think we need a real career pathway for our school safety agents, and we're looking to do that. The commissioner's doing an analysis of it, and she's going to let me know. So we want to ensure that every school has a required number of agents. We don't want to be heavy-handed. What Chancellor Banks is doing with Project Pivot, he's using crisis management teams to really intercede, like in that incident that happened on Staten Island. We believe our crisis management team need to be proactive and not just reactive. But I am a strong believer and supporter of our school safety agents. We need the right number, the right amount, and I like the ideas you stated about creating that safety corridor so that we can inform not only young people what's the best route to take, but along that route, we would like to create safe haven places where people could have a symbol in their window if they're a store, a drugstore, a cleaners, that if a child feels threatened, this is a safe haven place that they can go in, they would know how to call the police and give them the protection that they deserve. Children need to be safe to and from the school, they need to be safe in school. And I'm not the choir, I wrote the song, and I am not going to surrender that belief to anyone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Next one is Wish Week Daily, Alec Meeker.
Very much, man.
How are you?
Thank you for having. I'm doing well. So, I don't think any of us doubt the questionable sustainability of community media in this city and in the country. I think New York has done a great job, better than most cities, and is leading the way in a lot of these things. While the sustainability of community media is a problem that we're all facing and working on every day, I don't think there's a question at all about the strength of our communities and the importance that our communities, the value that our communities place on the community media outlets in this room. The one thing that my question for you is during your administration, how do you feel that we can unite these communities? All of these different publications in the room here, I usually only see these people during meetings like this, and coming together for this is great, but it feels like we go back into isolation. And our communities could be brought together. Our communities and journalists and writers, there's a lack of cohesion, and with that would be a lot more strength with it, which I implying would be a good thing. So do you have any thoughts on how your office can work on uniting and creating a cohesive feel for the community media, not just among us in here, but among our readers and our community members as well?
Okay, first, among this community, I would love to hear ideas from you on how it could be done, because I think you're right. I think that the writers, the bloggers, the radios, the podcasts, I think there's a real energy in the city of real opinion shapers for their various communities. So I would love for the group of you to come together and say, hey, Eric, here's some recommendations that we have. Because I don't have the answer to that question. You know your constituency and your groups and your colleagues better than I do, and maybe there's some inroads that you believe we could do a better job here at City Hall, and we're open to do that. Among your readers and listenership, join our Breaking Bread Building Bonds. We are looking to continue what we did in Borough Hall, where we did Breaking Bread Building Bonds, 10 dinners. Each person that attended the dinner came from a different ethnic, culture, lifestyle, and they sat down and did something revolutionary. They talked to each other. They had a simple meal, and they shared their culture. They talked about why they wore a turban if they were from the Sikh community, why they had a sukkah if they were from the Jewish community, what was the African culture, the Caribbean culture, the different foods. And those meetings were amazing. We want to do thousands of those meetings to turn 10,000 people into really understanding the diversity of our city. If we want to admit it or not, we're segregated. We are all off in our own silos. We don't even know our neighbors. We see our differences as something we are afraid of, and instead of something we should be embracing. And so if each one of you in this room, I don't know how many people we have in this room, probably about 30, 40 people. If each one of you did one dinner sponsored, that's 400 people. You know, so we want to do 1,000 dinners, and our office with Fred Preisner from our CAU Constituents Assistant Unit, we're kicking them off this next month, and so I would love for everyone in this room to host one of those Breaking Bread, Building Bonds dinners. Thank you.
Next one is Urdu News. Muslim Safir.
Hi, Mr.
What's
Mayor.
up, brother?
Good.
How are you, man?
Good to
You
see
coming
you,
to me
sir.
for a long time.
Long time. Thank you so much. Mr. Mayor, we asked our community and Urdu News newspaper readers that what question we should ask to the mayor. And the question a lot of questions came in, and the question we picked came from our youth and high school and college going students. And they want to ask you that what step is the city taking to ensure economic mobility and upskilling for different communities, immigrant communities, especially as artificial intelligence and automation disrupt job market.
Well, you can tell us from a high school student, because that's smarter than I know. You know, he sort of lost me on that one. You know,
Yeah.
our goal is to prepare our children for the future. And we did it on several levels. Number one, our summer youth employment. Advocates have been calling for 100,000 summer youth employments. It was impossible to get under previous administrations. We did it. We kept our schools open during the summer months with 110,000 seats with our Summer Rising program, because we know that there was a loss in educational opportunity over the summer. We know what COVID did to us. It devastated us. 110,000 children who wanted to extend their school year, we did it. But our summer youth employment was different than other summer youth employment. We not only wanted the children to make money to help compensate for their needs, but we also taught them meditation, breathing exercises, places to visit, life skills. We wanted the children to go back to their schools with stronger life skills. And that's what we did with those 100,000 young people, and that's what we want to continue to do. I just got off the phone, Zoom earlier with the Chancellor as we're going into how we're preparing our children for jobs of the future. We're opening a major life science campus right here in Kips Bay, a multi-billion-dollar project, but we want the children to be the pipeline to fill those jobs. All of the employment that we're looking towards in the future, we want to prepare our young people for those jobs so they can fill those jobs. Computers are not going to displace human beings. We just have to have a different skill set to prepare for those jobs that those computers, artificial intelligence, and others are created, such as gaming. There's no reason our children are playing games and not the creator of games. We created the first gaming curriculum in City College, with City College to give certificates and degree programs in gaming. This is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and we want to prepare our children for all of these industries that are coming online.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Next one is Queens, Gus, and Mike Root. Mike,
My question is
right
about-
there. Yeah.
Hi, first of all, congratulations.
Thank
on
you.
Progress with getting violent crime down. And secondly, mine is about housing. And just like you're trying to spread the wealth a little bit with media spending, it seems like the same can be done with housing. Because right now, the way things are done is the city gives tax breaks and money and land and whatnot to developers to build housing that the developers own, and then it makes tenants out of, you know, everyone in the city. And because people are tenants, they don't have an opportunity to build wealth, because in America, the biggest wealth builder is owning your own home. And in the rest of the country, 2/3 of the people own their homes, In New York City, only a third do. And I know, like in the 20s in Manhattan, 20th Street, or somewhere around there on the west side, a long time ago, they built housing, I'm not sure the particulars, but it sounded like something like where the units were sold to individuals, and then the prices for those units was pegged like at the median income for growth. And there's some kind of lottery or something like that where, you know, anyone in the city, you know, who's living in the city, X amount of whatever, can be eligible to acquire those. And if the city started to do that, instead of enriching the developers, starting to enrich the people by letting them, you know, access housing, and then keep that housing pegged to the median income as it's sold, you know, through lotteries, you would not only enrich more people rather than just a few people, but you would also make housing more competitive price-wise as time went on.
Well, number one, the answer to the housing crisis is build more housing. That's the answer to a housing crisis. If you have a limited stock, then you allow the owners to increase the value, you know, because, I mean, just human consumption. A rarity of the product makes the product more expensive. We don't have enough housing. The amount of housing we need to meet demands, we need to address. Number two, this is the first administration that put NYCHA inside our housing plan. We have the highest dollar amount, $22 billion allocated for housing. We have put NYCHA in our plan. We have also been successful to do some major 100% affordable projects. We saw the success of the Willis Point project. We saw the success of the Innovation Queens project. We saw the success of the project up in the Bronx, in Bruckner. The real crisis we're having in housing is that some of the strongest advocates are yelling, we need more housing, and then in the next breath they say, don't build it on my block, don't build it in my district. You can't have it both ways. Everyone must take on this challenge that New Yorkers deserve housing. And again, we have to lead for example. I have my little small brownstone in Brooklyn. I had 3 tenants. I have 2 now. 1 passed away during COVID. When they moved in, they signed a lease that as long as they live in my property, I would never raise their rent. They've been there for about 15 years. And they're living at the same rent level when they moved in. And so all of us need to give a little. But we, instead of saying that we're just giving money away from the developers, because we're not. Those 100% affordable projects, we need the developers to play their role, to put the risk in place, to make sure we build more housing, both market, middle, and low income. Because my teacher and accountant that's married together, they're struggling too. And sometimes we forget about that. We forget about those civil servants. And if you work in McDonald's full time, and your wife works at McDonald's full time, and many of the low incomes, you're not even eligible for it. And so we need to make sure that we have housing that goes across the board. The larger the stock is, the better we are able to leverage the prices. And so our goal is to reach 500,000 units. Deputy Mayor Maria Torres Springer and Jessica Cass, the Chief Housing Officer, this is what we're focusing on. We think this is a moonshot moment, and we need to reach for the moon to get people in housing. And then we got to do our job on those housing units that have not been filled. We were able to fill 2,000, but there are too many that are offline that is taking too long, and our goal is to take away all of those barriers that are in place that's preventing people from going into those affordable units that we have online right now.
Thank you. Next we have Sintao Daily. Lotus. Oh, right there.
How are you?
My question is specific.
Mm-hmm.
So we have, I know that this is a homeless crisis and migration crisis in New York City. And in Chinatown, they already have an exit shelter and is proposing 2. So under the fair share of the homeless shelter, don't you think 10 is too much for the Chinese community? And I also know that you already put the Grand Street as a migrant hotel.
Mhm.
And then the 91 East Broadway, you also have a tour and also have a meeting with the community. Consider is the other migrant center. And after the migrant crisis gone, and then become a senior housing. So you keep thinking about, think about that. So do you have a decision on that?
Yeah, and listen, when we came into office, we saw there were several that were going to open in Chinatown. We did a reassessment, and I think 2 of them we did not open there. But I need all of us to wrap our heads around this. Within a short period of time, we have 36,000 migrants that came to our city. 36,000. I'm getting calls all day. One of the councilmen from Washington Heights called me because they have 21 shelters in their district. I'm getting called all day from council people, state senators, assembly people that said we can't take another shelter in our district. We can't take another HERC. We can't take another migrant. I can't hear them. The law requires me to do things that I must do. I cannot hear anyone at this moment in time saying that they can't house anyone or anymore in their district. I don't have that luxury. Wherever I could find space in a bed, I have to put them there. This is decimating our city. This may cost us $1.5 billion. We already have a $10 billion budget deficit predicted in the out years. I don't have the luxury when people call me and say, can you not put it here in our district? I don't have that luxury to make the determination because bus loads are coming to our city. Colorado is now sending buses here. El Paso is sending buses here. Everyone is sending buses here. And I have to immediately make sure no one is sleeping on our streets.
Can you say no?
It's interesting you say that, and I understand that you're saying that. But in one voice, one part of New York is saying say no, and another part of New York is saying how humane you are to even say you're putting people in shelters. So I have to balance the city where we have 8.8 million people, but 35 million opinions.
Thank you. Next, we have the positive community area council right here.
Hey, thank you,
What's up,
Mr.
man?
Mayor,
How
for
you,
having us
man?
here. Good to see
See
you
you.
again. I know you've hosted these kind of meetings as the borough president.
Yes.
But one of the questions that I had to ask is about mental health, and you came out about the form of hip hop or drill music, as you said, and I'm wondering what, as far as education is concerned, the Department of Education is concerned, what are we doing to promote the arts in our community? How are we working? Because we know that these are not necessarily political solutions, but they're cultural and spiritual crises that we have to deal with. But you took a stand on that, and I just want to know if there's what kind of follow through.
Yes, and we had a meeting right here with a lot of the drill music rappers. Was right here in this building. First time many of them were in City Hall, and what they acknowledge is that this is not about just drill music. And people want to say that, hey, listen, we're anti-drill music. No, we're anti how social media is being used to promote violence in our community. And we need to really challenge social media. When you show the slapping game, when you show music that really desecrates someone who was shot and antagonize other people to go and retaliate, when you show the spread of hate on social media is having a major impact. You look at the Buffalo shooting, the person who shot the 10 supermarket shoppers, he was radicalized through social media. Just the other day, we had 3 officers who were assaulted. Thank God that they did not die from being hit with the machete. He was radicalized on social media. Social media is impacting our communities. Historically, if a person had hate, they would sit isolated in their own home. But now social media has allowed this hate to infiltrate our homes, and it's really impacting our young people. And that's why things like Breaking Bread, Building Bonds allow people to talk. But as you stated, we need to put arts and entertainment back in our schools. We just hired a sports and wellness czar who is looking at how do we use sports to bring people together, how do we use arts to bring people together with Commissioner Laurie Cumbo, because we have to get people outside of their isolation that people are experiencing that's really brewing the hate that we're seeing throughout this country, not only New York, but throughout this country. But I'm a big believer like you, sports, art, and wellness is the way to do it. This year, we're doing Hip Hop is 50. We're going to really look to use hip hop as a way of really bringing people together during this year in New York. Hip hop was born here in New York. Some say the Bronx. I think it was Brooklyn, but that's up to be said. But we're looking to use art in a very real way.
Thank you. Next one is El Diario, Fernando Martinez.
Been around a long time.
It's a very simple question.
Yes.
For the migratory crisis was a big surprise in your first year in this position. But my question is, how much longer is possible to maintain emergency hotel in New York City this year? Because I get interviewed with many family and say, no, it's possible move to my own house because New York City is very expensive. What is your perspective, your budget for this situation?
Yes, and New York is expensive. You know, if I could quote the great philosopher of our time, the rent is too damn high. You know, it's expensive. So what do? We said, how do we put money back in the pockets of everyday New Yorkers? We went to Albany, and we got the first time the increase in earned income tax credit. It was over 20 years since we had an increase. We were able to do that. That put money right back into pockets of families. We then went and said, how do we help parents who are not going to work because they don't have child care? We were able to get billions of dollars for child care. Never has been done before. We were able to solicit, and we were able to bring it back. Then we went after those children who are in foster care. There was something called Fair Future that they were fighting for years to get it baseline into the budget so that children who are in foster care won't age out at 21, allowing them to age out at 26. We were able to baseline that dollar amount. These children are now having life coaches until they're 26. We knew when they were aging out at 21, they were more likely to be unemployed, homeless, mental health illness, not graduate from school. And then we went to look at how do we focus on everything from reduced fare Metro cards. We put more dollars in that because, you know, swiping that Metro card when you don't have the money is different between jumping the turnstile and getting the summons or being able to get to school on time. Our goal was to say we don't control inflation, but how do we look at those New Yorkers that are struggling and get money back to them? We had a tax return. Adrian Adams, the speaker, partnered with us around the tax return to make sure we can get those homeowners back some form of tax return, real estate tax return in their budgets as well. So we try to find ways within our powers, partner with the city council, partner with the state, to how do we get money back into the pockets of everyday New Yorkers, and those are some of the examples that we looked at. We don't control inflation. The mayor has no control over that. We have no control of increasing interest rates. We have no control what the federal government is doing, but where we have control, we tried our darnest to give people the assistance that they needed.
Thank you. So we have a few more time for 2 more questions. So BK Reader, Sawari Morris.
Okay.
Hi.
How are you?
Hi, I'm fine. So the issue of your placing a lot of the homeless folks who are mentally unwell into institutions and shelters has been very polarizing for a lot of our readers. I think a lot of it has to do with some disinformation or not understanding the process. But this past Sunday, you had an interview on AB7 with Bill Ritter, and I thought you did an excellent job in really explaining very plainly what's going on with the your plan, the homelessness plan. Can you reiterate that in simple terms, what's happening, what's been done so far,
Right.
and what you plan to do for 2023?
Right. So in January of this year, while I was campaigning, I noticed a lot of people sleeping in the streets, in encampments and in tents. And so January and February of last year, 2022, I went out during those cold days, and I went into the tents, I went into the encampments, and I spoke to the people who were living in there. And I was devastated what I saw. I saw human waste. I saw drug paraphernalia. I saw people who were schizophrenic, bipolar, waiting for someone to come get them, to take them back to their planet. And these were our New Yorkers. These were our brothers and sisters who have fallen on hard times. And I went to my team and stated that people who can't take care of their basic needs, and they are in danger to themselves or others, we need to bring them to a hospital and have them have a proper evaluation. Now, it was reported that Eric was going to round up everyone that has a mental health illness and force them to go to the hospital. That was just untrue. We never said that. We did a full speech and we answered all questions, but it wasn't sexy enough to sell papers, so you had to push that narrative out there. We are going after a small pocket of people who are in danger to themselves or others and can't make the right determination of taking care of themselves. And the law says we can bring them an involuntary removal to the hospital, which we don't have to do a little. If we just spend more time speaking with them, we're convincing a far large number to go to the hospital. But we wanted our healthcare providers to be aware that you have that right. Now, some people say, well, you shouldn't have the police doing it. The police is not leading this. It's being led by our partners who are healthcare experts and who are outreach workers. Now, if they need the police, they will call the police. Like the incident we had last week, or it could have been a week and a half ago, where a mother called the police. Her son had a knife. He was extremely dangerous. The police came. The young man stabbed the police and stabbed his mother. I'm not going to send an outreach worker to a dangerous situation like that. Those areas where you don't need police, we don't want the police. We want outreach workers. That's why we put money into Be Heard, which is an alternative to the police that's doing it. So there are those that say, let's go with the status quo, leave it the way it is. I'm not doing that. I think it's inhumane. I think it is unjust. And I think it's wrong for us to leave people on the street that can't take care of themselves. And then there are those we speak to that has not reached that level. Then we connect them with services and resources, and we continue to build up trust every day. Every Wednesday at 9 o'clock, I'm on 34th Street and 7th Avenue, serving food to the homeless and interacting with them, asking them, are you getting the services you need? 2 days ago, we had sneakers we were giving out to people. People can't sit on the sideline watching their fellow neighbors, brothers and sisters of New Yorkers suffering like this and not doing anything. We have to all get engaged, because there by the grace of God goes I.
Yeah. Last two questions for today. Davidson Radio.
Would I get, I'm sorry, do I have some? Okay, I want to make sure I get everybody, because they all came here. So tell them, push it back a little, and even we got to do another day. I don't want to leave anyone that has a question.
Davidson Radio.
Okay. Again,
Davidson.
And Mr. Mayor, thank you for this opportunity. Gregory wants me to give his personal thanks, so let me say that, although it's in public, he meant it privately. Question.
Okay.
And that is the crime, the inflation, homelessness, a lot of the topics we discussed this roundtable make the headlines. Quality of life is also very important, and one of the issues is the cleanliness of the city. In November, you initiated a new program, I think you called it Get Stuff Clean.
Yes.
And my question is, we look back, and I realize it's only 6 weeks or so that it's been in operation. Do you have any benchmarks, any optimistic report you can give us on the cleanliness of our streets?
Yeah, and I'm glad you said it was only 6 weeks. I never forget someone stopping me saying, you know what, you're a loser, man. You still have potholes. Crime is still high. It's still unaffordable. And I said, man, this is only February 3rd. New Yorkers are amazing in their expectation. Let me tell you what was happening. Commissioner Tisch, we noticed that there were about 1,000 locations in the city that were no man's land. Nobody was assigned to clean it. And pulling off a highway, exit ramps, in these little squares. And so we did an analysis, dumping grounds. We did an analysis and said, listen, every place should be designated as what the Department of Sanitation is cleaning. And that's what we're doing. And you're going to start to see our program to put garbage in containers. We're probably, we're behind so many countries like Buenos Aires. We sent a team down there that are using containers to put their garbage in. We're just so outdated. We didn't always use garbage bags. At one time, you had to use a canister. The garbage bags came after the strike during the 60s, and it was a terrible move to use these garbage bags. Our city became a dirty place. And Commissioner Tisch is focused on cleaning the city up. We want to be the cleanest city in America. We're seeing a lot of the indicators. We have more to do. We have to change the habits of New Yorkers. A lot of people are just, dumping and not concerned about that. So we have to change the habits of New Yorkers. We're getting ready to hire a rat czar, and it won't be Curtis Sliwa. It'll be someone that has a real job, the only job that he's suitable of having. We can't use right now because we don't have a circus in town. So we're going to be focusing on a real good person that can do the job of going after rodents and making sure to partner with the Department of Sanitation to keep our city clean. And you're going to see an indicator of that as we continue to move forward.
Thank you. Muslim Community Report, Sheikh Musa.
Oh, Sheikh.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, and Happy New Year.
Same to you.
Yeah, they're professional journalist. I'm an activist in the media.
It's all good.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, as far back as I can remember, every mayor complained about the tale of two cities.
Mm-hmm.
We live in a city that has more billionaires, yet has more poor people.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody complain about it. We have some suggestions that I think will help based on your background and your eloquent expressing of this delivery. Number one, my barber.
You give me a list. If
Yeah.
you said number one, there's a list. Then you got a list, you got to turn it over. I want to make sure I get everybody. Give me your top one.
The top one.
Be David Letterman.
The
Give me your
is
top one.
My barber.
Yes.
He's been here for over 40 years.
Your
My barber.
okay.
40 years.
Yes.
See, he has been doing excellent job in terms of cutting people's hair.
Yes.
But he has been consistently moved from place to place because every place he goes, build it up and they sell
Right.
it.
Got it. Mm-hmm.
There's a suggestion on the table where if you have a long-term lease,
Mm-hmm.
then you should be given what we call the forced right of refusal, meaning that the city should be able to help you because you are providing economic vitality in the area to give you the forced right of refusal so that rather than the landlord sending it to somebody else, you have the forced right. And when you have the forced right to exercise it, there has to be some creative ways of helping them with whatever down payment and closing costs. If we do that, all these small businesses that are run by minorities, which is the engine of the city, will not fail at their third birthday. Majority of businesses don't make it. And once they fail, their credit is shattered. Sometimes their family is also broken. And now you have a cycle, vicious cycle of failure after failure after failure, and they can never recover. So if you allow us, we can sit down with your people to really come up with creative way where black and brown small business owners will be able to enjoy, the economic vitality of the city, so that at least we begin to heal the tale of two cities and the unjust inequality that existed for so long.
Right,
Thank
and
you.
we would love to sit down and hear about it. And I want the gentleman that talked about homeownership, I want to come back to you for a moment. I just realized something that I forgot. But we would love to hear the ideas. But it also has to pass legal muster. But you also can sign a lease, and when you sign your lease, you can have first act of refusal. So that could be, when you sign your lease with a landlord, you can do that. If you are a business and get an agreement with the landlord. I don't know the legality of having the city mandate that. I don't know if that would stand up to legal muster, but we would love to look at it, you know, because we would like to see how small businesses be able to stay. I think it breaks my heart when you have a business that's been there for years, the rent is tripled or doubled because they're successful, and have them displaced. If there's something we can do, we need to do it within the legal muster and partner with the city council to sort of push it forward.
You say you were gonna go back to the.
Yeah, but let's. I want to make sure I get everybody that had a
Okay.
question.
Amsterdam News. Ayala.
How are you?
Great, good to see you today. You and I talked about this before, but it's year end to your administration. What is your message to and plan for the underemployed and unemployed out of school with youth in the city?
Yeah, you know, and that's so important. That's a great question. There's a large number. I think it was about 250,000 between the ages of 18 to 24, not in school, unemployed, not in any type of program. We have to go get them. If I were to ask all of you in the room, your political savvy, but if the average person on the street, if you went to them and said, if they were to ask you, where do I go to get a job? Where do I go to tell my son to get a job, my daughter to get a job? There's no central place of where to get a job. And we're changing that. My workforce development team, we're going to come up with one site. No matter if it's going to call New York City Jobs, it's going to call whatever, where it should be universal. That no matter who you are, if you are someone where English is a second language, you know to say, go to New York City Jobs. If you're a person that just came home from jail and you just want to see what are your opportunities, go to New York City Jobs. We're going to do buses, we're going to do ads, we're going to do billboards. We need to have a central deposit of all the jobs that are available. There's a disconnect between those who are looking for jobs and those who want to hire. There's a real disconnect. And so what we want to do is take the complexity out of it and say, if you're looking for a job, here's where you need to go as your starting point. Break it down in areas of jobs, break it down in what type of education you need. Some don't need any education at all. It's unbelievable when I sit down with business owners, large and small, and they tell me, I'm looking for people to hire. You know, it's amazing. We get ready to open up the wind farm over in Sunset Park. We're going to need people to build these devices, need people to install them. We need to have people to know, here are the jobs that are available in the city. We have all these jobs for school safety agents. People are not aware of that. We have these jobs for, you know how many jobs we have in city government that people are not aware of? We need to have a central place so those who are not savvy can know to go to get a job. And right now that doesn't exist. We're building that out now. That was the next meeting I had with my my chief technology officer to see some of the versions of it. But we hope to get that up and running by the end of February. Because you're right, we got to get people employed.
Manhattan Times.
Hi, Mr. Mayor.
How are you?
I'm good. Happy New
See,
Year.
you were hiding behind Mona.
And to the colleagues, as Ms. Sterling rightly pointed out, we don't often, particularly because of COVID, have the opportunity to convene. So we appreciate these moments as much as spend it with you as with each other.
Yes.
And your team. One quick point I would make that is, a suggestion you probably are likely to hear. It is important for us to be sustainable. Advertising revenue matters. Another way for the city and for your administration to demonstrate the kind of investment that you are speaking of, particularly at the top of your conversation, is content. I can't tell you how many times we're aware on the ground of issues that people here have discussed and that your team has already perhaps sent a deputy mayor, commissioner, other members of your team to go out and address, even on the community board level. And the very first time that we hear a resolution or a solution comes from your press team already assembling the core here, the titans you mentioned earlier, getting to the same conversation that we originated. So many times the groundbreaking, the ribbon cutting, the on-the-ground visits, the ones that you choose to share. We would love to have that opportunity first cut. And we've spoken with other administrations about it, and it happens, not at all. So having said that, content matters as well. We want to be able to be voices for you on the ground and hear back and reflect that, but it comes back to us as well. Having said that, a place you know well, Albany, is up in arms as we speak, because Governor Kathy Hochul has appointed Hector LaSalle as her nominee to occupy the Chief Judge post. I need not tell you the kind of impact that the Chief Judge has across the state, but specifically in New York in terms of all the courts, housing, criminal, family, particularly post-COVID. You as a former state senator, you as a person who knows what history making looks like, as you know, Hector LaSalle, if he were to be in fact confirmed, would be the first Latino to occupy that post in New York State. Can you speak to whether or not you've staked a position on him as your nominee of choice? And secondly, to those that cast this as a particular conversation being held within the Democratic Party between the far left, as some would call it, and some of the more centrist voices. Again, a conversation you're familiar with. Can you speak to that second piece?
Yeah, so let's peel back both your questions. Let us know how to do a good job in getting content to you. All right, Jose?
Yes.
We would love to, because I agree. It's all about, I believe we have started the process of making sure that we get information out to you. Let us know. I want to be good at doing that, because I know you don't have a large staff. You know, you're basically operating on, you know, what you have. Whatever way we can do, we go different locations. We take photos, we take pictures, we have stuff. Whatever we can do, we want to help.
Absolutely, and just I don't mean to disrupt you, but we get it. I want to be clear. Your team is doing a wonderful job in giving us the content. The only modification I would add to that is the exclusive conversations that are about the projects that your team is rolling out. More often than not, those go to the other players. Where you're about to do something, Brooklyn, Bronx, whether it's a conversation around a population of constituency, black, gay, Muslim, we can get first dibs about that conversation. We don't have to wait like everybody else to be in the scrum.
Right,
So
got
there
it.
might be even a 12-hour lead where we can say, we got this. We got the information ready to go. You put an embargo on it,
Yep.
or we're the first to break.
Like it, okay, and I like it. I like that a lot. And also, we should doing this with me. We should also do it with our deputy mayors. You should get our deputy mayors in the room. We should get our chancellor in the room. We should get our commissioners in the room. They all know my marching orders. You have to be accessible to our various small local ethnic meetings. And so take advantage of getting Chancellor Banks in the room and say, what's your vision for education? Get Dafo Carrion in the room, get the police commissioner in the room, and have her respond to, this public safety questions. So you have full access to all of my leadership to hear the mission, and you should take full advantage of that.
Mr. Mayor, if I can add.
Yes, you can.
I've been working closely with many of the outlets here all year to get information out, and it's just tremendous to see the work that you've done to get accurate and important information to the immigrant community, and also acknowledge all the work that we've been doing. So I want to thank you for that and acknowledge that, and I think it's a model to follow, really, because you're on the ground and you're talking to people, and it's helped us too. So it's a two-way,
Yes, we really wanted to get this right. Local ethnic media is important to us. The judge, first of all, there has to be a level of pride for the Spanish-speaking Latino community of having to make history. Everyone wants to make history. There's a process, and those who feel as though he's not the right one, those who feel as though he is the one, this is the moment to look at it. Let him come in front of the Senate. Let him ask your questions. Let him give the answers to the questions. When I looked over his resume, he seems extremely qualified to me. So now let's allow him to go through the process, go through the hearings, and give the answers. Some people say, well, he should not be the judge because he was a former prosecutor. I just don't buy that. Some people said he shouldn't be the judge because of his position on certain things. I haven't heard that, what his positions are. Let's bring him in, let's go through the process. But if one started out already saying no matter what he can't be the judge, then you have to question that. Let him come in front of the Senate, the hearings. Let's have a good vetting of the conversation so we can make a smart decision.
Roosevelt, the African Journal.
Yes.
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 Thank you. After 1 year in office, and when you look back, I want to know what is your biggest achievement and what issue you can say I failed. You failed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Number one, you probably will realize I'm the first mayor in history that's been to Africa 7 times. I would say the top achievement. There's so many things that I think we're extremely proud of. Building the right team to take us the next 3 years. First mayor to have a woman as a police commissioner. First mayor to have an African-American woman as a police commissioner. First mayor to have a woman as a fire commissioner. First mayor to have 5 women that are deputy mayors. First mayor to have a Latino to head the Department of Correction. We've done so many firsts. First Muslim, first Filipino, first this, first that. Building the team. I'm proud of my team. And now we have to take the team and the items we put in the pipeline to materialize and build on the success that we've done already. We have a lot of victories that we witnessed in 2022, and that was our rookie season. Everyone knows 2023 is my Aaron Judge year. This is when we're going to really bring it home. But when you look at what we did in 2022, first administration to have dyslexia screening for all of our children so they don't end up in Rikers Island with 30 to 40% of our inmates are dyslexic. First to invest in foster care at the magnitude, paying $15,000 a year college tuition for foster care children with a $60 a day stipend and continue after they graduate, our Fair Futures. The first to extend early childhood. Do you know we were doing universal early childhood and we were not including children with disabilities? We're the first administration to say that every child, disability or not, will have early childhood seats in the process. What we're doing on NYCHA, we were able to do the NYCHA Land Trust when others tried and they failed, but we can finally start the process of building a NYCHA. So I look at all of these things, but in order to fully appreciate this administration, you have to look at where we started. We started crime resurgence. We started COVID was everywhere. There was a challenge, should we keep our schools open or not? And we pushed through and said, yes, we're going to keep our children in school. We started with polio, monkeypox, a horrific fire that took place in the Bronx. Every one of those residents in the Bronx are now in permanent housing. We were able to do that and give them the financial support that they deserve. And so we started at this severe deficit, and now we just didn't survive. We thrive. New York City is not coming back. New York City is back.
Roosevelt Islander, the last 2 questions. Roosevelt Islander.
Just,
good evening.
How are you?
Good, thanks. Just a point of information regarding affordable housing that you were just describing.
Yes.
There was recently a 340-unit affordable housing building completed on Roosevelt Island. There were 87,000 applications for 340 units.
Yep.
It's just an illustration of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And also, Roosevelt Island was originally built as a model for middle-income and low-income New York City residents through the Mitchell-Lama program. Mitchell-Lama's expired, and those are now all being privatized, and all the issues are now coming to fore. But anyway, you visited Roosevelt Island in August with Assembly Member Seawright, and there were a variety of local issues that were discussed, including governance for Roosevelt Island and quality of life issues. And you had said that you would send the questions, the list, to members of your team. And I don't think we've heard anything back yet, and I'm just following up to see if we can check on that.
Yes,
To see
and I saw Assemblywoman Seawright the other day, and I'm going to find out from the team exactly where are we with that, the exact initiative. I think that the governance issues should be solved, and we definitely need to resolve it. And I thought there were great initiatives that were put forward by those who were there. And so once we have a full understanding and the scope of it, we've been a little busy with a whole lot going on. But once we're able to really dig into it so we can make the right decision, you know, and ironically, this is my first time ever visiting Roosevelt Island. It's a beautiful place. That visit wasn't the first time, but last year was the first time I've ever been on Roosevelt Island. I think 4 times. So we want to come to a resolution on the governance issue and see whichever input we can have to make it happen.
Now, during that meeting though, just to,
Yeah, go ahead, you finish.
during that meeting, it was closed to the press.
Yes. Mhm.
And now you've been speaking today about how you want to work with the local community press.
Mhm.
I'm just wondering, thinking back on that and going forward in the future, when you have community meetings with residents, will you allow the local press to attend and to cover the meeting?
I'm always respectful of the wishes of the residents and people who invite me. You know, the press follow me all the time. You know, they follow me when I restaurant to see if I have fish. You know, I'm always followed by the press. I don't have a problem the press being around me, but I'm respectful. Some people don't want their names in the paper. They're not elected to office. They don't want their quotes in the paper. They don't want their pictures in the paper. So sometimes people say to us, we'd rather not open this to the press. And I respect that. You know, I have to be under scrutiny. Ms. Jones should not have to be under scrutiny, and I respect that. But rarely do we say closed press. We are more open press. We believe in transparency as much as possible.
To the extent you can keep these meetings open to the press, I think it's beneficial to the community to know when you attend a community meeting, what happened through an independent press.
I agree 100%.
Jose, excuse me, the mayor's hometown people in the room who need to ask.
Okay, let's go.
I'm sorry?
Let's go.
Oh,
Yeah.
Earl can catch me anytime. Good.
Yeah, I was you were
I used to write for his paper.
Yeah.
Which I'm going to bring up. I'm a frustrated journalist.
Well, in 2004, you wrote as 100 Black law enforcement. You wrote a column in January 2004 about the group sponsoring a series of parent workshops on violence.
Parent empowerment.
That's right. And I'm wondering, how is that we're working out?
We did it in Borough Hall, we did it in the State Senate, and we want to do it again. It was something we did once a year to empower parents on how to navigate the public school system. We used to give out computers, laptops, and other items for parents. We want to reinstitute that just to empower parents on how to navigate the complexities of the Department of Education. Something Mona has been doing for a long time. The power of parents being empowered. But we want to roll it out again.
Yeah, last one in Queens Chronicle.
After you passed a record budget in June, and you mentioned the out-year deficits. The city didn't make it through the first quarter of the current budget before you had to order pegs. What went wrong, and does the council leadership grasp the deficit problem?
One, we were planning on doing a second round of pegs no matter what. We were doing it in layers. So, as you stated, we were going to continue to do the pegs because we saw that, we're dealing with a real economic challenge in the city. And we knew that we need to go into our agencies and say, hey, we have to spend taxpayers' dollars better. We saw that we had to find smarter ways to spend taxpayers' dollars. I mean, we're asking everybody in the city that you have to manage your finances at home. You can't spend more than you take in, and government has to do the same. And so the PEGS, the program to eliminate the gaps, it was a way of going in and say what services that we can do better and what services we should no longer be doing. It's unbelievable as we dig and peel this back, how many things we are doing that we shouldn't even be doing anymore. How many things we're paying for that we should not be paying for anymore. We still probably have data plans on our phones. Who pay for data nowadays on their telephone? But you can't have the mindset, well, this is not my money, let me just spend what I want, and we don't want to do that. We're making every agency justify the dollars that they're spending. And I think some in the city council don't fully understand the severity of the economics we are facing. $1.5 billion to add on the $10 billion budget, said $10 billion to build the new jails when Rikers is closed. These are some serious dollars that we're talking about. And I didn't say million, billions. And we just have to be smart and fiscally responsible in the out years. And, you know, it's concerning, it keeps me up at night, but we've figured out and navigated through it. Okay, before I leave, I want to go back to that housing issue. There's a card called the BILT card, B-I-L-T. We have been meeting with the gentleman, it's a credit card. We have been meeting with the gentleman to kick the tires. But what this card does, I don't know if anyone of you are familiar with the BILT card.
B-I-L-T?
B-I-L-T. And you should get it out to all your members. What this card does, it allows renters to pay their rent with a credit card and get points. And those points can be used the same way you use points on your normal credit card or on your airline cards. But it does something else. It shows the renters, based on how much money you are paying on rent, here's the equivalent house you can buy. And it builds out a credit for you that you are building out your credit, because oftentimes renters, because they're not paying a mortgage, they don't have that credit rated. So this builds out a credit for you so that you can build the credit, and they pair you with the banks that are willing to give you a mortgage based on how much you're paying for rent. It's amazing that some people are paying more than they would pay for their mortgage, they're paying for renting. But a lot of people don't know that they don't only have to rent. So we need to move people towards home ownership, and we need to have a real program for renters so they don't have to rent for their entire lives. The American dream is to own a home. And many people have not had a pathway to do so. And so we're flushing out the program, the card, but right now it has exceeded American Express in charges. It has become one of the #1 cards in the country, and we're going to see if we can make sure we can do this program for NYCHA residents and for everyday renters, so we can put them on a pathway of #1, owning a home, #2, to get something for paying your rent.
Can I ask a
Thank you.
question before we?
Only if you want to.
Okay, so, I have the information, it's a follow-up from the domestic violence, bill signing. You remember I mentioned one
Yes.
of the women and you wanted the information, so I have it here.
Great.
The second question is, January 9, 2023 is around the corner. It's the anniversary of the tragic Bronx fire.
Yes.
We know that there is a housing crisis in New York City.
Mhm.
It's far more dire for African immigrants.
Yes.
My question is, what your administration is doing to keep black landlords accountable so this doesn't happen again, and when African immigrants get with difficulty that housing, that they are able to stay there but in safe conditions.
Well, first, every person who needed housing for that fire, they have housing. Every person who needed housing for that fire, they have housing. They also had financial support that they needed. We were able to raise, I think, $4.3 million, and every dollar is going to those who needed housing and follow-up care, mental health care. Some people lost their parents. So we have been fully on top of this issue. Sheikh Musa has been amazing around this issue as well. Commendable to him.